Schmitter Woods. Today we're working on finishing up the trailer. So we're getting these metal plates made up. So they need to bolt onto the wheel hub assembly. So we're getting holes drilled in them so that it will go through and screw to the assembly. So here, just trying to get the center lined up the best as possible. So when we drill the holes in the piece of steel, it lines up along the center that we cut out. So basically we're using one that we drilled already as a template to drill through that one to the other piece of steel, because these need to be very precise to be able to thread through, using that template and using some vice grips here just to hold that together. Then we take this out to the welder and actually tack it together so that whenever we're drilling, we're not just relying on those clamps. Just a couple of tacks on there to hold everything so that we don't have any movement. So whenever we're drilling those four holes, everything lines up. Here's a look at the drill press. So basically, this annular bit, since we're using a template, we need to make sure that it lines up exact through the first piece of steel that we have drilled to the second. So have a couple of C-clamps on there, and then just kind of tapping that back and forth so that it works. Using a little bit of oil helps. And then the annular bit is basically taking a cutout around, so instead of removing all the steel, it just cuts out around the outside and then leaves a little coupon in the middle. So this works fairly well and is definitely the most efficient way to drill a piece of steel. Traditional drill bit ends up getting dull pretty quick, so it ends up taking a lot longer and have to go through a lot more sharpenings. Definitely whenever you get to these bigger sizes like this. The only downfall of the annular bit is you have to have a very stable and straight work surface. So actually I had to reinforce the table that we're drilling on because it would bend down, which can cause that bit to break. So it only works in drill press situations and can't use it like on a normal drill. This is just going through and getting all of those cut and drilled so that we can get these pieces on there, and basically they're just spacers so that the wheel bearing assembly will mount onto the trailer. Since we got all of those, time to go get the frame that we have already made up and work on getting them attached. So first thing is getting the center figured out, so just using a piece of pipe as a fulcrum. Put a scale over on the tongue so we can kind of get a sense of how much weight we have on the tongue. Kind of do a sanity check to make sure that we're pretty close to center. And then go ahead and pick that up so we can start working on it. Piece of pipe and a scale to kind of figure out exactly where we want to put this. Really want to be about where that pipe's at. Put about 60 pounds on the tongue, but we're gonna have to come just to the back side of that. Puts about 90 pounds on the tongue, but it's still not terrible. So we put a mark here and here, measured from the back, and basically now going to use our template again and drill the 4 holes to get it bolted on. So we need to drill through the frame in 4 spots so that we can get it bolted on the wheel hubs. So similar to how we did the other, we went ahead and welded it to the frame so that as we're working on it, we don't have it moving around. Then here we use multiple stages of drill bits to get this. So we start with the big one to make a dimple in the center, and then start with small and just work our way up stages of drill bits. so that we can get drilled through this. And then again, using just a little bit of lubrication goes a long way. On drilling, it makes a pretty big difference. This first one takes the longest to get through, but then once you're through that initial one, the drill bits after that go quite a bit faster. So now I have all those holes drilled. Go through and do just a little bit of cleanup with the vacuum, pick up all the chips so that when we put the wheel bearing on there, we're not putting it in between the metal and the frame. So here we had just a little bit of misalignment, so ended up having to take and grind just a little bit of the inside hole so that the wheel bearing would line up. The good and bad about the metal is it's pretty easy to work with as far as it's easy to add and subtract material away. It's just very time consuming, whether you're having the weld to add on or use like a grinder like this to remove some material. I don't have any footage here of getting it bolted on, just kind of getting those bolts through, but here getting the tire fitted and just putting that on. Again, these are tires that we had that were bent from actually a dually. That's why they're kind of offset like they are, but they're bent and not really usable for on-road, so they'll work perfect for this off-road situation. So essentially all we did on the first side, we're doing on the second side. So again, getting the plate put on, weld it in place, and then start working on drilling those holes. So there you can see getting the nuts tightened on, or the bolts, so put those bolts on to hold the wheel assembly on, and then getting the wheel on and getting it attached. So we get it set on the ground and go ahead and hook the otter up to it to just take it for a drive up and down the road to make sure that everything seems to be working as it should. So have the pintle hook receiver on the otter so it's able to hook it right up. We are going to make another one. This one sticks back off the otter some. So we're going to make one that sits a little bit closer so that we don't have any issue with having too much tongue weight. I know that some people had mentioned concern about the weight and not being able to pull it. I think we'll be able to pull it, we just have to watch tongue weight to not overload that. So just doing a quick drive up and down the road to make sure it kind of tracks straight and no issues with the tires or anything before putting any weight on it. So, satisfied with the fact that it seems to track straight and does alright. I have a couple of logs that are out back that need to come up, so Dad brings the tractor down with the back of them forks, and we try to put a log on it. So the nice thing is this is just a little bit wider than the path of the otter, so almost any place that the otter will fit, this should fit, barring any turns, of course, but width-wise, it's just a little bit wider, so it's nice not having it too wide, so you don't have to worry about catching anything. The other nice thing with the Otter, compared to a truck, is it's easy to get it turned into a small location. So at the 100 acres, when we're trying to load up logs and we don't have a lot of room in the woods, the Otter will be pretty handy just because it's easy to maneuver. So I have a log here that doesn't have anything sticking off of it. It's from the log that we actually, or the tree that we used to cut up for the drill pavilion. So it's a piece of poplar that had a split in it from whenever we dropped it, so we weren't able to turn it into boards, but it'll make good firewood. So we're just kind of using it as a test. So that it's able to just set it on, and kind of gives us a sense of tongue weight, and even though it's just poplar, it's a fair size piece, so kind of gives us an idea of how the Otter will react to pulling a tree like this. This is a fair size log with a little bit of a curve to it, which is the other reason we're not using it, and it fits on the trailer nicely. So that's one of the reasons we kind of made the bed sit down, is so that whenever you put a log on, it's not right, trying to hit the tires. So I know like forks or something where you can lower it on could make more sense. You have to be a lot more careful with not getting into the tires, whereas with this, it kind of naturally sits in that channel and won't get away. So here, just pulling this back up to the firewood lot, and it's kind of hard to tell on camera, but there is a pretty decent hill here you have to go up, so just in low range with the full drive on, goes right up without any issue. Again, not a super heavy log, but it is of fair size. The other reason we wanted to do this here at the homestead was so if we needed to make any changes, we could. And kind of two things we took away from this was, one, with this we don't have very much tongue weight with where we put the wheels. So in theory you'd have to put trees pretty far forward, which becomes an issue. So we kind of did that evaluation. And then also at this very back corner where the 6-inch channel goes back, trees can kind of get stuck in that because of the point. So we went ahead and cut those off as well. And I kind of have that in another video to show kind of getting the final touches done before we paint it. So here you got it unstuck, so I hop in to pull forward. Okay, so I just did a test for the log trailer. Seemed to work really well. It didn't have as much tongue weight as we were hoping, so I think we're actually going to look at taking these, moving them back so they're up against this one, taking it back to this one, and that'll add some tongue weight. And if anything, you'll have to load a tree further back to get a little bit of tongue weight off, which would help. So I'll go ahead and end this one here. We'll have one more installment of making those final changes along with getting it painted and then putting it to use at the 100 acres. So thank you for watching. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.